This might be the most important branded video I've ever made, because this isn't just a normal updated deck list for April. What I'm about to show you is a version of the branded deck that completely changes how it's supposed to be built in 2026. And I truly believe that if this deck, if Branded wins a YCS, if Branded wins a major event, it's going to be a variation of what I'm about to show you today. This is a 46 card branded deck list. Yeah, I know how that sounds, 46 cards, but after testing the math, this version actually produces more powerful opening hands more consistently than the standard build. I'm talking about 96% rate to open a starter, 2+ starters 3 out of every 4 games, and nearly 1 of 4 games opening what I would consider a god hand. And the reason why this happens comes down to one card that almost nobody is using enough in Branded right now, especially not a 40 card list. This video is going to break down the list, show you the numbers, and explain why this version of Branded, or some variation of this, will win a YCS in the future. Now let's get right into the main deck. So we're going to start off with the 2 copies of the Fallen of the White Dragon. We have the 1 copy of the Fallen of the Albaz. As you can see, most of these cards, there's nothing that's going to be surprising you here, but I will make sure to make note of any cards that in particular that I would consider the goo or something that you probably aren't running in your build. We're running 2 copies of Incredible Ecclesia here. 3 is too much. I think 2 is the perfect number, especially as more and more people attempt to remove Ecclesia from play in order to prevent the resolution of the Fall of the White Dragon's effect. Plus, it gives you another starter. 3 copies of the Aluber, Branded Despia, our most powerful 1-card starter for anything involving Branded. Although the way I play the deck, I will, as much as possible, resort to using Branded Opening during the end phase to summon this card. So that does leave me more room to normal summon other things. But 9 times out of 10, if I have Aluber the Jester Despia, I'm normal summoning this card in my hand. 1 copy of the Springen's Kit. 2 copies of the the Blazing Cartesia. 1 copy of Guiding Quem the Virtuous. Then we have the 1 copy of the Golden Sword Soul. 1 copy of the Tri-Brigade Springen's Kit. 1 copy of Tri-Brigade Mercurier, and that's going to conclude all the Branded monsters for this deck list. And now the rest of the monsters will be the sub-engines and the tech cards that I feel like really push this deck over the top. We are running the Magistus package with 2 copies of the Magistus Sealer, Spenta, 1 copy of Zeroa the Magistus Flame, and 1 copy of Crowley the Gifted Magistus. If you're not aware of how this engine works, you would simply run these 4 cards and 1 copy of Artemis, the Magistus Moon Maiden, in your extra deck. This is all you need. If you can spare 1 room, you have access to a very resilient Synchro 8 package. By discarding Spenta, you normal summon the Zeroa, and you can equip the Artemis to it with Zeroa. This triggers Zeroa to special summon the Spenta from the graveyard, and now you have a Synchro 8. And the reason why it's very resilient, I will discuss in momentarily, so please be ready for that. And then the last 2 cards are 2 copies of Cockatorum the Heavy Metal Avian. After so much time testing this deck out over and over and over again, testing it with friends and experimenting, I decided and I found out that the best ratio for Cockatorum is a 2-to-1. It's 2-to-1, not 3-to-2, not 2-to-1 to 2 copies of Kit. And for people who are considering running multiple copies of Kit specifically for the Cockatorum engine, I will discuss why that is not a good idea and why it really isn't worth adjusting the deck to do so. So just be on the lookout for that. But yeah, those are the monsters for the engine. And then for the spells, we are running 2 copies of Branded Fusion, 3 copies of Branded High Spirits, probably the most important spell in your deck now. 3 copies of Branded Opening provides protection from destruction for your fusion monsters. Most likely will be played during the end phase, so you can avoid a lot of card effects that only trigger during the main phase from your opponent in terms of interactions. And this will be one of the ways in your normal combos that you will be summoning the Aluber, which leaves a normal summon opening open for other things. And then we're running the 1 copy of the Branded in Red for the spells. We are running no traps in the main deck, in case you're wondering. And now I'm going to go into the non-engine. So we have the 3 copies of Molcharmi Fool-Lost. Is pretty much in every build, no matter what. High Spirits Bridge, one of the most broken monsters in the game right now. Then we're running 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Primarily, worst case scenario, it's a Molcharmi stopper. It's a very generic, low impact option that can deal with a lot of things. So we're still running that, but we are running half Hand Trap and then half Board Breakers at this point. So 3 Forbidden Droplet. Most decks are running this right now. It's pretty much doesn't need to be elaborated on any further. It's one of the best breakers in the game right now. We can run it, and we will be running it at 3. Then we run 3 copies of the Fallen and the Virtuous. This is an engine, but also a non-engine card, so I mostly consider it non-engine that we can search, which is absolutely broken. Super versatile card that can replenish itself, and with Branded, it lets you special summon from the graveyard more often than not, which is really good. Especially when you have a Mirror Jade in the graveyard. Fallen the Virtuous for Mirror Jade is just better than just simply using Fallen the Virtuous in many situations. Not only because of the non-target banish, but the fusion going to the graveyard. Then we have 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent. This replaced the Branded Retribution. I wanted something that wasn't a brick, and many times in my testing, I noticed that I never really brought out the Retribution. It was either getting Branded in Red or getting the Fallen and the Virtuous. So since that was the case, it just felt like Retribution was something I could take out of the deck, and it did go to the sideboard for matchups, especially when I'm going first, where I really felt like the counter trap that its primary effect to negate a special summon could really come into handy, especially against decks like Dracodale. And then for the last 3 cards, this is the goo here. The reason why I went to 46 is 3 copies of Radiant Typhoon Vision. Absolutely insane broken card. I will be discussing very shortly why you should consider this card in your deck, and the numbers will shock you. So let's go over the extra deck. The extra deck's a little bit different than your average player, but I will offer options here just in case you don't want to run exactly the list. So the same list, don't worry about it. 1 copy of the Mirror Jade. Pretty much standard for all Branded lists, no matter what. I've heard some people say that when Killer Tune comes out, we will probably need to run 2. This is probably true, so I will discuss what I would take out in order to make a second copy and put a second copy of the Mirror Jade in the deck. 1 copy of Albion the Branded Dragon. This is definitely also different from what a lot of people run, but I truly believe in that the fact that we only really need 1. If you really think about it, our synchro plays don't really need too many resolutions of Albion the Branded Dragon. And then on the crackback, let's say you go first and you do your combo, you're probably going to send the Albion the Branded Dragon at some point. And this card will typically get you either the Branded in Red or the Fallen and the Virtuous. And then on the crackback, you'll probably be using your fusions to get back either a Albaz on the field, or Quem, Fallen the Virtuous again, or Branded Fusion. Well, we have plenty of fusion monsters that already get most of those cards already that don't require the Albion the Branded Dragon twice. Plus, we have cards that can shuffle this back into the extra deck. So, like the Dragon that Devours a Dogma. So we have plenty of ways to constantly use this over and over again. It almost never comes up that I need this card twice. Just to be perfectly honest with you. And the only time that you would think it could come up, which is a scenario where you would have a Fallen of the White Dragon line and then a Branded Fusion line together, and you want to play the White Albaz line first, the bait hand traps. They stop that line, and then you still want to have a Branded Fusion line. Then what I would do is I would reserve Albion the Branded Dragon for the Branded Fusion line and send something like Titanic Kite off of the White Albaz. Hopefully that makes sense. Lubellion the Searing Dragon, 1 copy. We have 1 copy of Titaniclad the Ash Dragon, one of the few decks that have a natural out to Liger Dancer. Especially if you run either Albion the Shrouded Dragon or Nibiru, which we do run in the side. 1 copy of Rinbram the Striking Dragon. Rinbram actually gets a little bit better and more important in this build because we have a little bit more winged beasts than usual to send off of something like High Spirits. We have Kakatorium in addition to the Molcharmi Fuwalas. Also, Rinbram is a little bit stronger when it activates its effect. You're not just simply special summoning the OG Albaz. What you're typically going to do is special summon the Fallen of the White Dragon whenever possible, and then have that get the Ecclesia, and then that gets you the the OG Albaz. So it actually gives you more value now because of the Fallen of the White Dragon. And don't forget, this card is also good to summon the hard summon, so you can negate an extra deck monster's effect, also get a bounce. If you can do that and get this in the graveyard, that'd be even better. Most of my lines don't typically summon Rinbram, but it's good to know that you can, especially if you're trying to get something like Kakatorium in the graveyard. You can fuse Albaz and Kakatorium to make Rinbram, and now the Rinbram can essentially get its effect to activate, bounce something, and then you can, once you're done using the effect, you contribute it off for the Kakatorium to continue playing and extending past that. And then since it's in the graveyard, now it's live for on your opponent's turn. So just something to think about. 1 copy of Albalinatus the Abyss Dragon. We had a lot of Draco Tail, so this became a lot more prevalent. Draco Tails died down a little bit, to be honest. And more people are, it looks like they're gonna, put some hits on Draco Tail. So this might become the flex spot we need to put something else in there. Right now, I'm either considering another copy of Mirror Jade, another copy of Albion the Branded Dragon, or a Secretarion Dragon. That's what I'm considering here. I'm also considering a copy of Philia Regis, just in case. Having that in the back of my hand just in case the meta changes a little bit. But this is something that people have to play around when they play against you and they have dragons in their deck. And this will come up as an out to the Secretarion Dragon. So when it goes to the graveyard, it does give you Branded Fusion, which mitigates the need to have multiple copies of Albion the Branded Dragon in this build particular. So that's why it's still in there, but that could change depending on the meta. We're running 2 copies of the Dragon that Devours the Dogma. This doesn't change. I think no matter what build I'm running, I don't think I can see myself running only running 1 copy of this card. We're one of the few decks in the meta right now that runs a massive towers that is of any relevance. And it also provides disruption or recursion depending on whether you use it for yourself or against your opponent. And many decks, after using their resources to fight through the rest of your board, when this comes out later during the turn, they usually don't have an answer for it. And even if they do have an answer for it, it gives you one of the most broken spell cards being played right now in the Fallen of the Virtuous. So it replaces itself with a really stupid card that also lets it special summon itself back on the next turn, because the Fallen of the Virtuous can special summon if you have the Ecclesia in the graveyard. And that's something that does not get talked about enough. kill the Dragon Devours, the Dogma. I get the Fallen the Virtuous. I bring it back for another towers, and more recursion for my graveyard or interruption in your graveyard, right? So also something that I really love about this card. I'm running one copy of the Grand YuGiOh. Grand YuGiOh, not Grand YuGiOh. Most decks do run 2. I am comfortable running just the 1. I've played with 2. I've noticed that I don't really need the 2 that much. It does make it more comfortable for you, especially if you are a big fan of the lock. And I do run the lock with Diabels, but I don't run the Archlord Christia one. I feel like that's more vulnerable to the quick play spells that are being played right now. So I don't even bother running that one. I just run Diabels to deal with those board breakers that are attempting to just wipe my whole board off. I'm more concerned with the board breakers than my opponent spamming special summons on the crack on their turn. I can deal with most of what they're doing as long as I don't have access to their spells. And most of the major decks right now that Branded has to contend with really rely on their spell cards, except for maybe like VS K9. Next, I have my Chaos Star Source Dragon as my last fusion monster. Pop 2, very versatile dragon. Would love to be able to recur this constantly, so I can use it again and again. I actually did that today against somebody. I made a Chaos Star Source Dragon, tributed it away or fused it away, and then used the Dragon that Devours the Dogma to put it back into the deck, only to make it again on my turn. For the synchros, I have Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon. One of the reasons why you play Branded is absolutely broken. I actually have 2 of these, but we're only running 1. The deck really only needs 1 unless something changes, which is why I got the second one just in case before it, skyrocketed in price. And remember, Fallen of the White Dragon can special summon Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon from the graveyard as well. So just so you are, so if they somehow get rid of it, they pop it, and you really want it on the board, you can use Fallen the Virtuous to put it back on the board, or you can use Fallen the White Dragon to get it back on the board too. So then we're running the 1 copy of the Psyframe Lord Omega. You've seen many videos out there already showcasing why this card is very, very effective, and because this deck is so good at blitzing through hand traps, that my opponent will run through 2 or sometimes 3 hand traps trying to stop me, but I'll still be able to get my board. And as I'm building the board, I will use Omega's effect to rip another card out of their hand, and it puts them at such a massive disadvantage after they've used their hand traps. This also has an effect in the graveyard to return a card back to the deck along with itself, similar in a way to what Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon does. It doesn't interfere, it doesn't board break by any means, while Ecclesia can. But this is also another tool that we can use to recur resources. Sometimes you can let this go to the graveyard by filling your board up with monsters, and then during the standby phase, this will go to the graveyard, and then you can use this to return itself and something like an Albion, the Branded Dragon, or a very important card that you want back into the deck. You can shuffle those back in. And sometimes do the same thing with Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon as well. I'll let that go to the graveyard and then have it as a board breaker before I resummon it again, resynchro summon. For the rest of the extra deck, I have 1 copy of the Despia and Lula Lilith. This is my Grand YuGiOh target. I think it's better right now than the Proskinion. I just don't. Proskinion is really great against Dracotail. If your area is playing a lot of Dracotail still, then go ahead and keep the Proskinion in there. But I think Lula Lilith's better overall, especially against those continuous spells, those field spells, those continuous traps that a lot of people are playing right now. Plus, this will end up boosting your board and making it more difficult for your opponent to just beat over them. Be over your monsters. Plus, if it does die, this does give you the opportunity to get a light spellcaster onto the field that has an equal attack and defense, and all of your very important light spellcasters fit that. So, very good card to go into. Then we have the 1 copy of the Artemis, the Magistus Moon Maiden. This is the only extra deck spot you need to run the Magistus sub-engine. And then for the last deck list spot, I am running 1 copy of Evil Swarm Exoton Knight. This used to be in my sideboard. I don't run the Albion, the Sanctifier Dragon anymore, which is absolutely insane that I thought of doing that. I didn't think I would ever say that. And Branded doesn't really need that card anymore because the Fallen on the Virtuous is so broken. So they gave me an extra spot for something like an Exoton Knight, and what this does is help me going second to break boards. As you guys know, 2 level 4s overlay. As long as you don't use the summoning, the effect of Albion, not Albion, the Fallen of the White Dragon from the hand. As long as you don't do that, you can get to this through the Magistus engine. You can normal summon Albaz, special summon Cartesia, go into this. Normal summon Albaz, get the Ecclesia, synchro summon immediately. Not synchro summon, but Xyz summon and go into this. Other options, I have also considered running something other level 4, rank 4 synchros. Like the one that draws 2 cards. His name escapes me right now. If you don't want to run this, you don't necessarily have to run this in the main or in the side. If you do want to take it out, then this would be your extra copy of Albion the Branded Dragon, Mirror Jade, or even something like Ophelia Regis if you'd like. But I do like having this in the chamber as an emergency nuke option. My opponent has a ridiculous board and I need that extra push before I can go into my branded plays. Won't be able to do damage to them after I use it, but still something they have to be really, really scared of. So even if I normal summon anything, if I normal summon a Zeroa, then that's a major threat for them. The sideboard, pretty straightforward. It's designed to be very simple and not require much thinking. I'm running 2 copies of the Perulia. I only think you really only need 2, in my personal opinion. You can run 3 if you find a room for it, but most of my time, I really only need the 2. I'm running 2 copies of the Nibiru. And then I'm running 3 copies of Nadir Servant, which goes in for the Molcharmies when I'm going first in games 2 or 3. And alongside the Nadir Servant, I'm running 1 copy of Dogmatica Fleur de Lis, the Knighted. Once I get my board up and I have my Dogmatica monster on the field, which is typically the Quem, I really just need the Nadir Servant just to go ahead and get the Fleur de Lis in my hand as another hand trap. And this Nadir Servant is really, really good right now, and just playing through hand traps, playing through Molcharmies as well. And then for the rest, we're running 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster and 1 copy of Lightning Storm. If you have Illusion Gate, then totally run Illusion Gate for one of these cards. It's just that I'm not because, well, it's really expensive. And maybe someday I will get one. If you have it, go ahead and put it in there. But Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster, they do the job. But obviously, if you have Illusion Gate, go for it. I am running 3 copies of Evenly Matched. For some reason, people are not expecting this card to come out. It is such a blowout card. And then for the last 2 cards, I'm running 1 copy of the Branded Retribution to put back into the deck if I feel like I'm playing against a matchup that the negation effect comes into play more often than not. And then I run 1 Diabelle's, the original Sin Keeper, so I can use the lock against spell reliant decks. And that's the whole deck. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you my doc, and we're just going to go over some very key points here, and then we're going to end with some video, some matches to hopefully explain what's going on, show you how good this deck really is. Let's talk about what the starters are. There are 21 starters in this deck. And by starter, what I'm talking about is something that will give you one of these 4 things. Access to Branded Fusion, access to Fallen of the White Dragon, access to Branded High Spirits, or just produces a level 4 tuner, level 4 non-tuner. So that it gives us 21 starters if you count the Magistus engine. Zeroa, the 2 Spentas, they get you into a Synchro 8. Cockatoria gets you into Fallen of the White Dragon, and then all the branded cards that go along that obviously gets you into Branded Fusion or Fallen of the White Dragon. It equates to 21 in a deck of 46 cards, and and this is for not accounting division. The probability of getting one starter in this deck is actually 96.12%, 96.12%. I'm sorry, and then 2 or more starters is 76.34. What does that mean? Pretty much is almost impossible to not draw a starter in this build, and 3 out of your 4 games, you're going to open 2 or more starters. And when you consider that most decks, they design themselves to have, on average, 2 interruptions, 2 hand traps. I'm going to also show you a match where I play through 4. And it's absolutely insane. But what makes this build insane is essentially what I've been alluding to this entire time. It's how it forces my opponents to use multiple hand traps just to keep up. And a lot of the main points, the main cards that you want to hand trap in this deck require, if you want to fully stop it, you really need 2 hand traps. So let's start with Fall of the White Dragon, right? So if you summon Fall of the White Dragon, you summon Walbaz, you're sending a fusion to the graveyard. We know this, right? And that's huge because your opponent has to stop the on-field effect, of course, but you're still getting some type of value in the end phase. So they're not really fully stopping it. They're really only stopping half of it with 1 hand trap. So to fully stop it, they have to stop the on-field effect, and they have another way to deal with the end phase effect of Albion, the Branded Dragon, and other fusion monsters in the graveyard that you're sitting there. Dragon Devours the Dogma, or other cards. And that technically means they have to use 2 hand traps to stop your 1 card. And even if they do stop both of them, that's a 2-to-1 trade that works for you. Okay, now let's look at the Magistus engine. It's very similar in that it forces a 2-for-1 trade. All right, if you have Spenta in rotation, your Zeroa line becomes, I normal summon Zeroa after discarding the Spenta, and then I get the Artemis from the extra deck. Zeroa's effect triggers when it's equipped, special summons the Spenta, you have a Synchro Weight. Now, they can stop it with an Imperm Veiler, right? They can hit the Zeroa with Imperm Veiler, but does that really stop the combo? No, because you have a follow-up, because banishing Spenta from the grave equips the Artemis anyway. And then the Artemis itself has an effect when it's equipped to add Crowley to the hand. And Crowley has the ability to use its effect to special summon itself onto the field like Snake Eyes Poplar. And just like that, you're back online, making that level 8 synchro. So you have Fall of the White Dragon requires to fully stop 2 hand traps. Imperm Veiler off of a Spenta doesn't do anything to stop the level 8 synchro. And if they wait for you to get out the Ecclesion, the Dark Dragon, they have to spend a hand trap to stop it on your turn. Then they have to spend a hand trap to stop it on their turn. So that's also another very powerful card that can potentially eat 2 hand traps. And now you get to see like how this deck just blitzes aggressively through everything. There isn't enough hand traps in the world to fully stop an average branded hand with this deck. Now they could just Ash the Spenta, but why would they Ash a Spenta against a branded deck? That is a great way to lose to Branded Fusion, and no one does that. And that being in the back of their head always puts pressure on them to force, it puts pressure on your opponent and forces bad trades. Cocatorium, by the way, which is maybe a little bit more subtle in how it also goes through hand traps, banishes Mercurier as a cost, which means the Impermanent Veiler that people like to run doesn't even do anything to the Mercurier. It only stops half of the value of Fall of the White Dragon, and it doesn't even stop a Zeroa off Spenta. So it effectively limits the value of those low-impact hand traps so severely that really the only thing that can fully stop it, really stop your opponent playing this deck, would be an Ash Blossom or Molcharmies, and then a well-timed Nibiru. But Branded already is notoriously known for playing through Nibiru with cards like Grand Guignol and then the end phase effects of fusion monsters in the graveyard. So that doesn't really work unless you just play really badly into it. And Droll doesn't work either in many scenarios, even though you have a lot of cards that will put cards in your hand. There are routes that branded players are used to that makes Droll not even that effective. In fact, the only reason you would run Droll in many situations is just essentially as a glorified Call by the Grave from Old Charmies at this point. Which is why I ended up taking it out, because it wasn't giving me enough value when I noticed how people were easily able to play through it. Although that might change if I look at some of the board breakers in my deck. Since I don't have the Illusion Gate, I might take out a few cards just to have like 2 copies of the Droll, maybe. And that's something you can do as well. If you're not really as big into board breakers as I am, you can take out the Lightning Storm, the Duster, and just put Droll instead. Totally okay. So what Cockatorium does is essentially it follows the same kind of logic with what the Magistus line and what the Fall of the White Dragon does, right? It forces your opponent to use Ash early, because how are you stopping Mercurial from typically getting the Fall of the White Dragon? Because if you let the Mercurial get the Fall of the White Dragon, you are potentially only stopping half of its value if you let that summon happen, because Fall of the White Dragon sends a fusion as a cost. So technically, the highest value is to just stop the Mercurial, period. But if you use Ash to do that, once again, you put yourself in the way of a branded fusion resolving. And that's always going to be at the back of my opponent's head when they know I'm playing branded. When you put all of these together, the Cockatorium, the Magistus line, the Fallen of the White Dragon lines, you get a deck where every engine demands an answer, but no single hand trap is enough. And that's the key idea. You're not just playing through disruption. You're exhausting their disruption. This deck doesn't lose to one hand trap. It's designed so that every engine requires 2. Now let's talk about the vision cards. So honestly, shout outs to Jesse Perez. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce your name. He made a video recently that helped me understand how I want to mathematically utilize Radiant Typhoon Vision in my deck. And that's kind of what I went with here. So, in my 46 card deck, what is the probability of drawing at least 1 vision? It's 29.72% right now. That means 1 out of 3 matches. So you can expect to see 1 copy of Radiant Typhoon Vision pretty much once every set of 3. Okay? Now, why is Radiant Typhoon Vision played in the deck? And I think this needs to be cleared up immediately. Radiant Typhoon Vision isn't played to increase the chance of opening a starter necessarily, although it kind of does that. What it really does, it increases the power of the hands I currently already have. It increases the ceiling, and I only sacrifice a very minimal amount of consistency, and I'll show you how much I actually lose by going 46 in 1 second. What does Radiant Typhoon Vision really do when you open it? You draw 2 cards, you discard a quick play spell afterwards. The deck has 16 quick play spells. If you count minus the one you're activating, that's 15. So what it effectively does is it gives you a hand of 7. The 5 in your hand, and then the 2 cards you draw, right? So based on that, what is the success probability of resolving vision without failing? It's actually 85.9%. Very high percentage. So it means 14% of the time it'll fail, but only on the 29% chance that we open it. So 29% of the chance, so 29% of the time we open it. For that 29%, 85% of the time we will succeed. And oftentimes I won't even use activate it unless I have another quick play spell in my hand already, a lot of times. But sometimes what this means is you can just shotgun it, and usually you'll get a successful resolution. Now, obviously that means without vision, you're only seeing 5 cards. With vision, you're seeing 7. Now, how does this impact the starter probability? With 7 cards after vision resolves, our probability of seeing starters skyrockets, right? It makes sense. We have 7 cards. We effectively have a 7-card opening hand. With 1 or more starter, it's a 99% chance. It is literally impossible. It actually requires more skill to not open a starter after resolving a Radiant Typhoon Vision. Okay? And then with 2 starters, it jumps up to 90.94%. This is where the God hand comes in. This is the key result. Okay? So here's the numbers right there. Everything will be there for you in the video. This is why we can consistently get God hands and just play through hand trap after hand trap after hand trap. Because of not just, like, even without vision, we can play through 2 hand traps pretty consistently, 3 out of the 4 games. With vision, it's pretty much every game. We can play through 2, 3, 4 hand traps. And we have right here, increases the probability of getting 2 or more starters by 14%. And it takes so what does vision really do? It takes average hands and turns them into strong hands, but it turns strong hands into God hands. As you can see here, 29% we open vision, 85% is successful, and then the probability of having 2 or more starters in those 7 cards becomes 90.94. Okay, all those numbers together basically means 23% of the time we're going to have a extremely high ceiling hand. That's 1 out of every 4 games. Okay? Now, like I said before, the reason why we went to 46 cards was because we wanted the 3rd copy of the vision. Now, you may be saying, well, you should just ran 45. You're lowering consistency. Well, how much consistency are we really losing in exchange for these extremely high ceiling hands? Well, let me show you. Okay? Right here. Now, starter quality on success. If we had a 45 card deck, 21 starters, these are the numbers here. 98.6%. This is talking about with the vision, by the way. 2 or more starters, 88.8. If we put 1 extra card, which is the vision, in there, still 21 starters, you can see that the probability barely changes at all. It's not even like 1%. Very small loss, negligible loss in consistency. That's why we run 3 vision. Without losing meaningful consistency, we get a much higher ceiling. We only lose 0.9% consistency, guys. But we increase the chances of us drawing vision by 9%. It's 20% in a 45 card build if you run 2 vision to see it. But it's 29% if you run 3 vision in a 46 card deck. We also increase the success rate when we do this. And we have a much higher chance of having really ridiculous hands, which are, by elite hands, I'm talking about hands that play through 2, 3, 4 hand traps. Okay? Now, I wanted to discuss briefly about Cocktatorium. I wanted to make sure I had these numbers before I brought it to your attention. I've seen people running deck lists that ran multiple copies of Springen's kit, and one of the reasons why they did that is not only just have another starter in general, but because they wanted to decrease the probability of them getting bricked, of having bricks with Cocktatorium. And a brick in this scenario would mean you have Cocktatorium in your hand, but you have the Mercurier in your hand, which means you can't banish from the deck. That typically means you need kit to resolve on the field to get a branded card and then put the Mercurier back in the deck. And you have no way of accessing it. So in this scenario, in the 46 card deck I just showed you, that happens this percent of time, 0.45%. The probability of this happening to you is so minuscule that it literally doesn't do anything beneficial for you to add the 2nd kit, especially when you consider that out of all the starters that you could run in your deck, while we like kit a lot and we do want kit in our deck, is on the lower end of starters because it does unfortunately makes you put a card back into the deck. It's essentially, it requires one extra card to put back into the deck. So I don't want to run multiple copies of a card that makes me do that. You know what I mean? So that's why I still run 2 Cockatourium, 1 Mercurier, 1 Kit. I think that's the perfect ratio if you're running a smaller build. I haven't tested a 60 card build with the ratio yet, but I have a suspicion that the ratio still holds true even in a 60 card build. Now let's talk about Triple Tactics Talent. I think this is a much better card to run over the Retribution when you're blind going first or second against an opponent. If you get a hand with Vision, just out of curiosity, what would happen if you had a Talents and Vision in your hand? You would see 9 cards, obviously, if you use the effect to draw 2 cards from both of them. This is the probability, by the way, of seeing 1 or 2 plus starters. 99.9% if you get Vision and Talent, and you draw 2 with the Vision. 95% for 2 plus starters. There's no way you could not have a starter in that scenario. But yeah, so this is the engine breakdown. White Dragon, Synchro Core, Magistus for level 4 engine, and Cockatourium is a bridge to get to the White Dragon core there. So this is a match I recently played. I have Aluber, I have Branded High Spirits, I have Cockatourium. I actually had Fleur-de-Lis in one of those builds. I think this is like the 2nd or 3rd game, by the way. My opponent has Ash Blossom, Purge, Gamma, and Nibiru. So that's 4 hand traps he can play. Let's see what he can do to stop me. Okay. So I go ahead and play High Spirits. He doesn't Ash Blossom this. He actually doesn't Ash Blossom or he doesn't Purge this, which is probably the first mistake he did, but I guess he would want to keep the Ash for Branded Fusion here since he knows I'm playing Branded, and he probably wants to just focus on stopping Fallen of the White Dragon, because, you know, if he just stops this and I have another way to get the Fallen of the White Dragon, then, you know, he probably feels like he wasted his negate. And that's really the big problem with these low impact hand traps right now against Branded. They don't fully stop anything. They need 2 to 3 hand traps, and the way I built this deck, that's not even enough. Especially since I'm probably running the Deer. I think I'm running the Deer Servant in this deck too. Yeah. So this is definitely a game 2, game 3 scenario. We're running the Deer Servant as well. So just out of curiosity, we're running 21 starters in this deck, right? So if we add 3 more, probability of us getting a starter is 98%. The probability of having 2 starters is 85%. The probability of having 3 starters is 54%. So half the games, we will have 3 plus starters. All right. So going back to the replay, we play we have Cockatourium here, which is absolutely perfect for just blitzing through hand traps. So High Spirit here, we're going to show the Cockatourium, and we're going to send the Rinbrum and draw a copy of the Springen's Kit. All right. I activate Springen's Kit. We're going to special summon and activate its effect. He Ash Blossoms it. That's absolutely wild that he did that. Now, he negates me going for a Branded Spell Trap. That's totally fine. I'm going to tribute the Springen's Kit and special summon the Cockatourium from the graveyard. Now I'm going to activate its effect and banish for cost the Tri-Brigade Mercurier. Nothing he has in his hand is going to stop me from doing that. And now the Tri-Brigade Mercurier's effect's going to activate. Does he negate it? No, he doesn't. He waits for the Fall of the White Dragon. He's pretty much deciding, I'm going to let him play the Fall of the White Dragon, and then I'm going to negate the Fall of the White Dragon. Unfortunately, as a cost to activate its effect, I still get to send a fusion monster to the graveyard. I'm going to send the Dragon Devours to Dogma this time. Special summon, activate its effect. He uses Gamma to pop it. Okay, so he negates it and is destroyed. I haven't normal summoned yet, by the way. I normal summon Aluber the Branded Despia that can search for a Branded Spell or Trap. He uses Dominus Purge. So we just went through 3 hand traps just now. Now I use Branded in red. I'm going to go ahead and use Fallen of the White Dragon. bring back the Albaz. I'm going to fuse the Cockatorum since it's now a dark dragon, since it's copied the attribute of the Mercurier, and bring out Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. I leave the Alubra on the board because it does have value in the graveyard if one of my fusion monsters gets destroyed, and it's there already. Activate the effect of Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. I'm going to discard the Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis in my hand, and now we're going to go ahead and go into the Mirror Jade. Alright, Mirror Jade. Now, the reason why I went to Mirror Jade is because I'm looking at my graveyard. I have only one fusion monster in the graveyard. I want a second one. I want a second fusion monster in the graveyard. So I'm going to activate the effect of my Mirror Jade. I'm going to send the Titaniclad. And that way I can get the Quem during the end phase. And I'm going to banish one of his monsters. Then he goes Nibiru to get rid of the whole board. Okay, I guess Nibiru gives me the token. So I have no cards in my hand. He's nibbed me. He still has a Dominus Purge for next turn. 3,000 attack monster. What happens? Obviously, Mirror Jade's effect activates, so he's going to lose the one monster he does have on the board to blow up, and he just gave me a 7,300 attack monster. Now, during the end phase, Titaniclad's effect's going to activate. We're going to go ahead and special summon the Guiding Quem from the graveyard and activate its effect, and we're going to send the Fallen of the White Dragon. I use the effect the Dragon that Devours the Dogma to search for the Fallen and the Virtuous. Use the Fallen and the Virtuous. I'm going to pop his Nibiru so I can get a Red Albion in the graveyard. Quem's effect's going to activate since I sent a fusion monster to the graveyard. It's going to reborn the Mirror Jade. And then I have the effect of Albion, the Branded Dragon, to make more plays, set a Branded spell or a trap. You see where it goes. And he only has one card in his hand. I have so much follow-up afterwards. So I just played through 4 hand traps. This doesn't do anything, by the way, this Dominus Purge. And yeah, he managed to stop me from getting to Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon as well. So that was absolutely incredible game. I had to show you that game, guys. Let's look through another game where I have to fight a Sky Striker player. And if you do like the video, guys, I know it's a little long, but if you do like it, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps. And post comments. Let me know what you guys think about these plays. Alright, so we're playing against Sky Striker. In this video, this match, I have the Golden Sword Soul. So that's one of those bricks that you don't normally want in your hand. Let's see if we can do something with it. We have the Fall of the White Dragon. We also have the Spenta, and we have Fuwalos, and we have Cockatorum. Okay. So we have 3 starters in our hand, technically. We can use the Spenta and the normal summon to go into the Spenta effect to go to get Zoroa and then go into a level 8 Synchro. Now, when I typically have Cockatorum in the hand, when you're doing the Spenta line, you may think that you should probably go from Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon when you Synchro summon that and use its effect to special summon Fall of the White Dragon from the deck. Let's say this card isn't in my hand. When you use the Spenta line to go into Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon, check to see if your hand has a monster that can synergize with Branded and High Spirits. If you do have that, you may want to use Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon's effect to special summon Springen's Kit, get Branded and High Spirits, and then use that to get Fallen of the White Dragon in your hand, so you can activate it from your hand and get a fusion monster to the graveyard. Otherwise, you may get Fallen the White Dragon, you may get Ecclesia, but you're -1 a fusion monster in the graveyard. Whereas with the kit, you get 2 fusion monsters in the graveyard, and and Fallen the White Dragon fully gets its combo. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and start off with the Spenta. Discard that, and when I see this in my hand, that's typically where my normal summon is going to go, unless I have like a Luber plus Cockatorum or something like that. Because I know this will play through Imperm Veiler, right? And 99% of the time, they're not going to Ash this unless they're stupid. Or they just don't know. I'll put it that way. He has Droll. Droll's not going to do anything to me. Alright, he drills me. We're going to go ahead and normal summon Zero, activate its effect, and we're going to put the Artemis, get the Artemis equipped to it. Zero's effects can activate, get the Spenta. Synchro Summon, Ecclesia the Dark Dragon, activate its effect. We're going to get the Guiding Quem this time. Now, remember I said we can get, we could have gotten Springen's Kit instead. We would have done that, but he drilled me, so there's no way we could get a card into our hand to use High Spirits with the Cocktatorium. So we're going to go ahead and get Guiding Quem here and send the Ecclesia to the graveyard. Then we're going to use the effect of Fallen in the White Dragon, send the Red Albion, special summon Fallen the White Dragon, chain link to chain block the Fallen of the White Dragon. And we're going to special summon the Cartesia from the graveyard. And now we have the Incredible Ecclesia on the board. Synchro summon into Psyframe Lord Omega. Now, before I activate this effect, remember we have the Golden Sword Soul in our hand. So, because I have Cartesia, I want to make Grand YuGiOh anyway. So, I'm going to use the Golden Sword Soul in my hand to fuse with the Cartesia before I activate Omega. Because when it banishes, this will trigger the Golden Sword Soul if I want to use it this turn. So, we'll go ahead and fuse it away. Grand YuGiOh. Banish. Grand YuGiOh's effect. It's going to go ahead and send the Rimbrum the Striking Dragon. I did that this time. I sent Rimbrum this time in order to make sure I had a way to special summon Albaz on my opponent's turn. I was really concerned with, especially after seeing what they're playing. I wanted to have to make sure I got this into the graveyard just in case other hand traps came through and prevented me from getting Mirror Jade on the board. Also, I'm on the effect of Droll, so adding cards to my hand through the effect of Alubra through a branded opening was not available to me. So we're just going to be setting cards here. Fallen the Virtuous gets set. Cartesia is going to go to our hands. We can use it for potential fodder. Same thing with the Incredible Ecclesia. And now we have the Ecclesia back on the board. He has 3 cards in his hand. And yeah, could this have been better? It's really hard to say. If we had used Rimbrum to get something like... using Rimbrum... Sending the Fallen Dogma Dragon. Sending Dogma Dragon would not have gotten us anything because we were under Droll. So really the only option for me was either to go for something like, I don't know, let's go look in our extra deck here. Getting this wouldn't have helped. Because what would special summoning Albaz do for me? It wouldn't have an effect. We already have Quim on the board. So my only option really was to go ahead and get the Rimbrum here. Alright, draws a card. He gets Ash Blossom. That's nice to see. Hornet Drones gets his Hayate. I immediately fall in the Virtuous. Pop it. And we're going to send the Oblinatus so I can get Branded Fusion on the Crackback. Raise effect activates. I chain. For some reason, doesn't Ash Blossom the Ecclesia. That's totally fair, I guess. Okay, then he actually negates it. But that's okay. He does negate it. I'm going to chain and get out the Albaz from the graveyard with the effect of my Rimbrum. Since he's obviously going into a Synchro Link monster. Alright, he goes into Sky Striker 0. I get Incredible Ecclesia. Zero's effect activates. I activate the effect of Zero. I activate the effect of Ecclesia. He Ash Blossoms that. Goes into Engage. Gets himself another linkage. Goes into battle phase. Kills the Quem. Activates linkage. Goes into Kagari. Kagari's effect. Gets another spell card in his hand. Looks like it's Engage again. And wow, he kills the Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon. At this point, the Sky Striker Ace Kagari is at 2,800 attack. Second main phase, he goes into Engage here, and he can start trying. He's gonna start picking apart my the rest of my board here. Upstart Goblin. He just starts drawing mad cards. He draws the talents, draws another 2 cards. Absolutely insane. He has the Shark Cannon here, and he also has the Ghost Haunted Mansion. Use the effect of the Shark Cannon to make sure that my Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon gets banished. I activate the effect of the Golden Sword Soul in response. Actually, I think he negates that, actually. He ends up negating it. Why was it negated? I don't remember why. Okay, anyway, Shizuku, he goes to the end phase. He gets Shizuku, gets a Lemon's Gate. Lemnis Gate. I'm sorry, not Lemon's Gate. And he gets rid of the 2 cards in my hand. Now, I was wondering, why would you return the Fallen of the White Dragon back to my hand? I think that may have been a mistake, but as you can see, he's clearly wiped my whole board off of that. But I have 5 cards in my hand, and I'm having the effect of my Albalanetus go off. I'm getting Branded Fusion. And another Ecclesia, another card in my hand to use for fodder. I draw Fallen of Virtues, immediately pop the Shizuku. And now he has a full board. I go full loss in response to him going into getting the Ray back from the graveyard, because what is he going to do with the race except make like another Link monster, right? So might as well go for it. All right. Special summons a Rose. Activates the Lemon's Gate from the graveyard. Immediately goes into 0. I draw into Radiant Typhoon Vision. He also gets himself a Widow Anchor in his hand. All right, and now my Omega returns, and then I banish it again. I banish it again to banish the Widow Anchor back in his hand. Fallen Albaz effect activates because let's see what I special summoned the Incredible Ecclesia. I'm gonna go ahead and just take his monster, or attempt to. He changed to 0, pops the Albaz. I go into Fallen the White Dragon. Activates effect, getting Ecclesia again. Special summon the Ecclesia. Branded Fusion. Ray goes into, Amatsu. Deals me a card. I go in Branded Fusion. I go into Rebellion the Searing Dragon. Rebellion's effect activates a Scarred Kakatorium. You change the effect. With the Link monster, I go into Chaos Starsource Dragon using the effect of Cartesia. Chaos Starsource Dragon pops the monsters. Kakatorium gets normal summoned. Banish the Mercurier. Activates effect. I go ahead and get a just a Tri-Brigade Springen's Kit as a normal summon. And that's just gonna be game after at that point. So as you can see, absolutely insane here. Playing through a Sky Striker board. And this was playing through Droll, by the way, as well, when he did that to me. So that was a pretty interesting game. And let me show you down one more. I'm going to show you this game here where I lock down Draco Tail and just show you what happens when you get Diabells on the board. And it's pretty neat. Alright, so this game, I actually start off with Radiant Typhoon Vision ×2. And then I have the Golden Sword Soul, which is unfortunate because obviously I don't want to see that in my hand. So this is a hand where Radiant Typhoon Vision just goes ham, because this is without the Radiant Typhoon Vision, if these were just regular cards that didn't do anything, I would just be Ash Blossom pass, right? Alright, so let's see what happens. Vision. During the draw phase, I draw 2 cards, and I discard the other Radiant Typhoon Vision. I get a Kakatorium, wow, and I get Branded in red. Much, much better. Normal summon Kakatorium, activates effect, banishing the Mercurier, and we're going to go ahead and get the Fall of the White Dragon off of that. Looks like he doesn't have any answer for that. Actually, he does have the Phimina, so you might be messing with a Arthalion at some point potentially. But as you can see, he also has the Rahu, and we also have the Harpy's Feather Duster. Now this is like the second game of a best of 3. So obviously I sighted in to run the Bellstar. So we go ahead and send the Titanic Cloud to special summon Fall of the White Dragon, special summon the Ecclesia to its effect, activate the Ecclesia's effect, and get the Golden Sword Soul from the hand. We're gonna go ahead and synchro summon the Ecclesia's Dark Dragon, and we're gonna send that away with its effect to get the Cartesia, activate the effect of the Golden Sword Soul. So we do not activate the effect of the Golden Sword Soul. We're just going to simply synchro a fusion summon into Grand King of the Dust Dragon. And I believe I'm saving. In this case, we don't really need, looking at the graveyard, we don't really need anything on the field right now. I would rather have the Cartesia and the Incredible Ecclesia go to my hand if I need it for discarding effects, worst case scenario. And I probably want to do stuff after I get the Titanic Clad out. Is effect to get the Quim on the board. And that's going to happen during the end phase. So if he wants to do something to me, he has to essentially do it like now with the Phimina. Alright, I use the Granguigno's effect, and that's when I send Diabell's the original Sin Keeper. Set the card into set the forbidden, drop it. I keep the Branded in red in my hand. I'm probably going to end up playing it. Exodia comes back in my hand. With a special summon the Quem from the deck. Quem's effect's going to activate. I'm going to go ahead and put Tri-Brigade Brigand's Kit in the graveyard. Activate its effect. Get Cartesia on the board. Branded in red. We're going to go ahead and fuse with the Granguigno, and we're going to make the Mirror Jade. This, since we banished, will allow us to get the Golden Sword Soul out. Since we're not doing the Branded opening play, I realized that I don't need to put the Cartesia, the Exodia into my hand. So I'm going to special summon it on the board using the effect of Golden Sword Soul. We're going to use the Mirror Jade's effect to send the Dragon that Devours the Dogma to the graveyard and banish one of our monsters. I choose the Cartesia because we could easily get another one with Exodia here. This also triggers the Quem, and we're going to special summon the Springan's Kit. The reason why I brought back the Tri-Brigade Springan's Kit is that just in case, since I know I'm playing against Draco Tail, I need more bodies on the board to protect myself, and if he pops this incorrectly, I could resurrect one of my key monsters from the graveyard, like a Mirror Jade or something. So it's a good shunt blocker in that scenario, and I want to at least have one spot on the floor so I can bring back Diabell's. Dragon Devours the Dogma effect activates. We have Exodia on the board, so we're going to activate the Fallen, the Virtuous, and special summon Diabell's. Alright, Diabell's now on the board, and we're going to end our turn now. So our opponent is completely locked out of spells. They'll have to set them. He does draw a Fallen Albaz, so he might go into Fallen of the Albaz. He might special summon Pankratops here, we'll see. He starts off by setting a Harpy's Feather Duster, which I just immediately pop. Don't even care anymore. So I go ahead and pop the Mirror Jade. Actually, how did I do this? Yeah, I popped the Mirror Jade. The reason I popped the Mirror Jade here is because I'd rather resurrect it later. Since we didn't have any monsters to banish with it, I didn't want to banish any of my monsters using Mirror Jade's effect. I probably should have done that, especially since I did not have a copy of Rinbrim in the graveyard, so I maybe should have done that. But I do pop his back row card, and then I go into Fallen of Albaz, and I don't activate the effect. I use Blazing Cartesia, and I go into Albion the Branded Dragon because he just set another card, which is the Rahu here. So the next play is to go into the Chaos Star Source Dragon. So I make Albion the Branded Dragon, activate its effect, and because I made another fusion summon a monster, the Quem is going to be able to resurrect that Mirror Jade. We're going to banish the two fusion monsters, the Albion the Branded Dragon and the Titaniclad, and we're going to make the Chaos Star Source Dragon. We're going to go ahead and pop that back row card. He special summons Pankratops and then normal summons the Lucius. So Lucius' effect's going to activate. We're going to Mirror Jade and non-target banish. He's forced to use this in response since he can't. He obviously is a non-target banish, so he has to do something with it. I send the Rinbrim at this point, and because we had OG Albaz in the graveyard, we never activated the effect yet. But so we're going to go ahead and banish the Lucius, and then we're going to lose the Guiding Quem here. He only has two monsters in the hand. He does not have... He's about to get a monster in his hand, so he will be able to use the Fiamina, actually. So he goes and gets the Malulu. Fiamina's effect activates. He's going to go ahead and send the two monsters in his hand, the Malulu and the Albaz. Makes Arthalion. And we're going to go ahead and droplet that. Now what I should have done was I should have banished... I should have tributed the Mirror Jade, because that way, if he kills the Springan's Kit, he risks potential. Actually, no, because the droplet's gonna lower his attack to 1500. So it looks like I left it on the board just to have another blocker, but I could have use the Springins kit to bring back the Mirror Jade, but it looks like I'm going to bring back something else. I think I'm going to bring back the Quem with it, actually. But I negate the Arthalion. He does get the Ketsu Draco Tail here, and negates the Mirror Jade. Totally fine. I don't really care at this point. I'm going to get the Quem back using the effect of Tri-Brigade Springins kit. Activate its effect, and I'm going to go ahead and send a I'm going to send a Branded Retribution to the graveyard. So let's see what I have in the graveyard, actually. So I can get Fallen the Virtuous, Branded in red. Pretty good stuff. He activates the Ketsu Draco Tail, so he's still able to play the game. He goes and gets the Draco Tail Pan. Goes into the Draco Tail Shawless. Very interesting. He goes and gets the Draco Tail Sting. He finally takes out the Diabells, the original Sin Keeper. But by this time, its job's already done. Right? I took out 2 spells. He only could really summon the Ketsu Draco Tail, and he ran out of monsters to do anything else. So we pretty much stopped him. He adds those cards back in the hand into the deck with the Shawless, but 2400 he's probably gonna get rid of the Guiding Quem one more time. Goes to end phase, and at this point during the end phase, Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon comes back to the field. He should not have put the Mirror Jade back in the deck, to be honest with you guys, because now I have the Random Brooms effect activating, getting the copy of the OG Albaz from the graveyard, puts it on the field. I'm going to Branded Retribution, get the Fallen and the Virtuous in my hand just in case. I probably could have gotten something else, but I'm going to have to discard a card, so maybe I should have just did Branded Fusion and then used Retribution to put the Branded Fusion back in my hand. Either way, it looks like we was going to win this, so I was pretty assured of that. So we was going to get the OG Albaz, get the Shawless, fuse the Albaz, make Mirror Jade, and we just swing with everything. We just win for game. And I still have Branded Fusion in my hand now because I have Fallen the Virtuous. I can just throw that away. And yeah, that's a game. So yeah, that's the deck. I really hope you guys liked the video. This was a little bit longer than I normally would like it to be. I'm going to go in and do some edits later just to make sure we can cut it down a little bit more. But hopefully this gives you an opportunity to really explore the deck. It's a really, really good deck, guys. Whether this is the final build, probably not. But for April, this is what I'm going to be playing when I go to locals. I've been playing against VSK9. I've been playing against Azamina Yummy. I've been playing against Draco Tail primarily this entire time. And those are very prevalent matchups. And I think this is the right way we need to go. So definitely check it out. If you have any questions about certain decisions in the main deck, when it comes to the side, it's always fluid with me. It depends on the meta. But with the main deck, I think you guys are really gonna love this, and I genuinely believe that this is the right combination of sub-engine. If you're a more aggressive branded player, you want to push 2 things, push to interruption. I think a deck like this is what you want to play. If you're more about the hand traps, if you like 18, 19 hand traps in your deck, sure, go ahead. My thing is right now with these low impact hand traps, they don't do enough. You know what I mean? And in some cases you get hand looped. And when I saw that happen, to not only just some of my friends, and I'm watching a lot of matches online about using Imperm and Veiler and all these cards, and it doesn't even really stop the Azamina deck and Radiant Typhoon, and just blitzes through it, and they dodge interruption. Yummy as well. At that point, I was convinced not to run those cards anymore. Board breakers seem to be better anyways, not to where it completely eclipses hand traps, but where it's like you probably want a 50-50 blend, which is kind of what I would try to go through with my side as well. Like I have 4 hand traps in the side, and then I have 5 board breakers in the side to go along with it. In the main, I have 6 hand traps, and then I have Fallen the Virtuous and Forbidden Droplet. So it's about a 50-50 for board breaking, and obviously Thrust. Talent can be considered a board breaker as well if you steal a monster or help you get engine. and Branded by nature is a board-breaking mid-range deck. So, I felt pretty confident about this one. Let me know what you guys think, okay? Genuinely mean it. I really want to see Branded win a YCS, and that's kind of been my motivation for trying to build the best deck possible so someone can go take a version of this and just wreak havoc, okay? Especially with what they're probably going to end up doing is like nerfing Dracotail. A lot of those players are probably going to make a heavier Branded build anyway, and I would not be surprised if something like this shows up with maybe with more of a little bit of Dracotail in or something. But I wanted to do a pure Branded build. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and have a great day.